Let's press on. So, Commander Langwood, you are on.
Thank you.
And by the way, for those of you who have walked in, I have the agenda, I have the commander's summary over there, and many of you who have participated in the past probably got a link to it in the email that I sent a day or two ago.
So thank you, everyone, and for everyone online as well. I hope everyone had a chance to review the summary that I had put out for the last month. Before I get into the summary or stand for any questions, I'd just like to provide an update of where we're at this month and kind of what we've been focusing on. And then what I'd like to do, I'd like to make it a regular thing where at the beginning of every month, I will provide you that kind of that qualitative summary on our initiatives and operations, policies that come across my desk that is being published department-wide for all of our officers, and then partnerships and our engagement and outreach efforts, where we're doing with that, just so you guys have an idea of kind of what I'm thinking and where I want to go with our so before I get into the summary for August, I can tell you for September, as I've reported in the past, aggravated assaults and batteries was our largest crime category. And what I mean by that, that's the crime category that had the most incidents, right? Well, that's no longer the case now. Auto thefts has the highest number of incidents, and aggravated assaults and batteries is a very close second. However, what I'm very pleased to report on, the first quarter of this year, we were trending in a very bad direction in the sense that we had more aggravated batteries and assaults than last year. We did several things to really mitigate this and reduce our aggravated batteries and assaults. On the operations side, we really looked at where our high crime areas were, and we increased our high visibility presence, we increased our field briefings, we increased our TAC plans. We did everything that we could at the officer level. And I will tell you, your officers consistently, week after week, they are working extremely hard to go out there and take those 911 calls, but also do proactive work. But I'm pleased to report also, in addition to just the police operations in the operational sense, we also thought outside the box, working with other resources. We launched a restorative justice campaign that we met with, we put this out to the business community, all of our neighborhood associations. I myself have worked with Tanya Covington. She works out of the city attorney's office. In fact, I just gave her 2 referrals the week before. And I like to think that that restorative justice was also one of the driving factors to where now we are down in aggravated batteries and assaults in the sense of comparing it to where we were at last year. So for the first time, we're in the green, we're not in the red, it's about 1%, but at the end of this first quarter, we were negative, upwards to 30–40%. So I'm glad that that's trending in the right direction. Right now, robberies and auto thefts is where we are seeing, in a year-to-year comparison, we are seeing that that's what we need to focus on. Those are the felony crimes that, and it's not just so much for the Southeast Area Command, this seems to be a trend citywide in all the other area commands as well. So really our focus is robberies and auto thefts. We do also have an increase in shoplifting, and we are working more of the engagement side by kind of increasing our, coffee with the cops at these specific business location and retailers. So we're hoping with that increased presence, that'll cause disruption to where someone is going to show up and shoplift and they see an event going on with police officers and community, that it will have an effect. But again, one of our primary focuses now in this upcoming month is going to be robberies and auto thefts. And kind of what we're doing for that is every morning when I come in, I'm pulling the CADs for robberies and auto thefts. I'm looking at all the locations of where these crimes are occurring. So I can kind of see where our high crime area or hotspots, whatever you want to call it, where they're occurring. And so what we want to do is we want to do several things. Not only do we want to do the police operations, but we also want to work with the locations. So all of the business locations and residential locations where auto thefts and robberies, crimes have committed, our crime prevention specialists are going out there and doing follow-up. They're meeting with those location managers slash victim reporting parties. They're offering crime prevention through environmental design, inspections and surveys. They're providing material on auto theft prevention and also robbery prevention. So we're hoping with really kind of providing that education and helping these locations better equip themselves, whether if it's with technology or just basic crime prevention measures, that will reduce them from being victims in the future of these type of crimes. You know, we're working with specialized units within the department. The auto theft unit is no secret. We have bait vehicles. So we're coordinating with auto theft units to bring in bait vehicles. I'm not going to disclose the number that we have, but, you know, in the event that we can't have bait vehicles in every street, there's other additional equipment and technology that we can use. Even if it's something as simple as a sign that says bait vehicle in the area, that could be a deterrent, you know? And then also like our camera trailers, it's a matter of ensuring that we move those around as we see these different high crime areas pop up. So that's what we've been, that's what our focus is going forward. We're almost done with State Fair. We met with New Mexico State Police and the New Mexico State Fair leaders. We have a very good partnership there. Thankfully, there hasn't been any incidents of concern in the fair or around the fair. We worked out our response in the event that an incident does happen, and we have to, I'm talking Southeast Area Command, has to go in and assist them and support them. So I'm glad that that partnership is strong and that we haven't had any incidents. Also down in Nowpil in the last month and a half, it's kind of slowed down now, thankfully, because I think of the measures that we put in place is having an effect. But they had a few burglaries down there at a few of their businesses. So we also partnered up with UNMPD and also the airport, the officers assigned to the airport. With that partnership between UNMPD, it helps us as a manpower multiplier, where we have our bike officers who are assigned to Nowpil working with UNMPD bike officers to where they can have that increased visibility, that high visibility presence down there, and then also making those business contacts. We're probably going to be building out a new business coalition down there in the University Heights area, so I'm excited about that. I'll take a little bit of time to get set up, but we seem to have good buy-in from the businesses that want to participate. So again, I'm excited about that. We are gearing up towards Blue Fiesta as well, kind of looking ahead, where we all know that we have a large population from out of town folks coming in to attend our fiesta. I'm sure we all remember in years past those heartbreaking stories on the news where a poor balloonist comes in or someone from out of town and all their stuff gets stolen, right? So we want to focus on that. We want to make sure that all of our out of town folks and all of us, of course, aren't victims of these type of property crimes or robberies. So I'm organizing, and this is going to be a department-wide effort, but I'm organizing a warrant roundup, citywide, department-wide. I'm going to be pulling resources from the Investigative Bureau, the Special Operations Bureau, and all of the area commands and field services. We're pulling felony warrants for auto burglary, auto theft, and robberies in Bernalillo County warrants. We're going to prioritize prolific offenders, ones that have multiple felony warrants. Should have a list of about 500. We're going to have 10 teams, and for 3 days, right before Balloon Fiesta, we're going to be conducting apprehensions. The hope is if we can really apprehend the prolific offenders that are probably just as excited about Balloon Fiesta, but for the wrong reasons, that's one tool in the toolbox of making sure that everyone's property and everyone is safe during the fiesta. So that should get kicked off. I'm still finalizing the ops plan for that. That should be kicked off by the end of this month, where we conduct that warrant roundup. that's what I have on my plate going forward. The substation, we're moving today, so I don't know if you or your neighbors have experienced this. We are closed now, so we can't do any type of community or public help at this location, but our tri-sub is open 7 days a week. Again, they have extended hours for Friday nights and Saturday nights due to the nightlife in Uphill, but there they can do police reports, they can print out police reports, and they can set up periodic watches if you're going on vacation, or if you just need some extra patrol in your neighborhoods or in front of your businesses. So that's really all I have for what's on our plate now and going forward. Again, some of the initiatives that I just talked about, October 1st, I'll provide a recap, of how they turned out, and also with new policies that are, not new policies, but revised policies that are being published. I really think it's important that, obviously, because our officers have to follow policy, and again, it's my position as we as a department and we as a community, we evolve, those policies need to evolve with us, right? Again, we serve we serve you, the community. So if something's outdated or out of practice, it's good for us to revise that. So I really urge all of you to get involved in our policies and to see what or how we're operating and what our responses is. So if there's something that we're not thinking of or something that we can revise for the betterment of the community, let's do that. Now, I don't know, Mike, I mean, I don't think I should go over the write-up that I gave you for the end of August, but I can stand for questions. As you all know, August was a trying month for us. We had some horrific crimes being committed against certain populations of our community that really sparked a lot of fear and anxiety. It's something that we haven't experienced, not in my time on the police department, where you had an entire culture within this community affected and in fear. I feel that we did everything that we could with what we had to really look at not just the apprehension of the individual committing these horrific acts, but also trying to provide support and safety for the community, having everyone in the community feel safe. So that was included in my write-up, also as well as the issues that we're having at the parks, especially with parks next to schools. It was on the news about the closure of Coronado Park. The administration had to take a stand, especially due to the crimes that were being committed over there. So they chose to close Coronado Park. The last thing that I wanted to hear is to see any new Coronado Park spring up where there was that same type of crimes and activity that's happening. So again, for me, it was kind of that balance, I guess is the right word, because at one point, you look at a lot of these individuals that are unhoused, right? And something that ACS, the Albuquerque Community Safety Department, they've said this time and time again, when we send this team out to provide or offer resources, it may not happen on the first on the first take. A lot of the unhoused population, they may be suffering from addiction to substance abuses or mental health issues, obviously food insecurity issues. There's a myriad of issues, and wherever they are at in their lives, and again, it's just my opinion here, but I have to recognize that if we offer it once, they may be in a point in their life where they're not ready. ACS has some test cases where they told me about where it was the 16th time of them offering resources where those individuals finally accepted help, right? So for me, it's kind of balanced, like, I think all of us as humans, I mean, we have to have some level of compassion, recognizing that there's a lot of factors that are causing them to be in this situation, and if we can help them, connect them to resources that will bring them out of that lifestyle, then we should do that. And I'm all for that. If we can fix a gap or a problem or an area in a person's life to where we get them on a path that they will be successful, and they don't ever have to have interaction in the criminal justice system. I'd rather go that route than take someone to jail and take them to jail over and over and over, right? So again, recognizing that, but at the same time, recognizing the need for security today for our businesses or for our residents and our children that are going to parks. It's difficult, it's tough. The marching orders that I have for the officers that work for you now is for the parks that are next to schools. We have to be out there every day. So they have been out there every day at Filchico and Wilson Park. It's been effective. At one point, right after Coronado Park, we saw upwards to about 40 to 50 tents at Filchico. That's not the case. I just drove by there 2 hours ago. Since we've been out there every day in collaboration with ACS and solid waste and planning and family community services, when I went by there just like an hour ago, there was about maybe 2 tents and maybe just a handful of folks. So again, when we saw that increase, just our presence of being out there every day and taking enforcement when all of our other resources were exhausted. And what I mean by that is we gave them notice and we gave them and offered resources. And like I said, we have to remember that maybe they may not take it on the first time, but again, when we do enforcement, we're of course taking into consideration, these are misdemeanor offenses, right? They're not the crime of the century, right? The 99% of the time it's going to be erection of a structure, which there's an ordinance where you can't do that. Or if it's after hours, we can enforce that. I got some good feedback from the CPC members where there was a question about, are we criminally trespassing? Because everyone has the right to enjoy a park, a city park. We are not criminally trespassing. Criminal trespass is more for private property. A park is not private property. But we're using the ordinances in place where we can clearly see, and a reasonable person can clearly see, this individual is living out of this park. And it's concerning when you have children in this area command that are afraid, and their parents are afraid to go to these parks because they're just afraid, and these children just have as much rights as everyone else does to enjoy these parks, and they can't do that. So that's why the orders came from me as far as our initiative on our parks. And I will tell you, in follow-up to when I wrote my summary and provided it to you, we've noticed that we have kind of displaced them to smaller parks. So again, and this is where I'd love to get you guys' feedback and ideas. I think as a city, there's a bigger picture with the Gateway Center and the safe spaces. But it's a little bit, I scratch my head because it's like if we as a city don't have the capacity right now, what I mean by capacity is enough beds or providers for them, we're just hurting them around. We don't want them to be at Wilson. We don't want them to be at Filchicone. Now they're at the little parks. We don't want them to be at the little park. Well, where do we expect them to go, right? There are shelters that do have vacant beds. But again, I'm sure that there's a portion of this population that may go there. But if depending on these individuals' underlying root causes of what's causing them to live this lifestyle, the West Side shelter may not work for every single one of them. It may work for a portion, but not work for all of them. So I just think it's, I know we touched on this in previous meetings, but it's a community issue, and it's going to take a community response. It's not going to be APD solving it or anything like that. But I just feel that until we can get capacity, we're going to be dealing with this. Unfortunately, we're going to be dealing with this every day until we can get those solutions in place. Other than that, just a real recap. I know I put something else out in the write-up about our level 1 use of force pilot initiative, and if everyone's not familiar that's on the call, the reason why APD was in the DOJ court-approved settlement agreement was because of use of force. There was a pattern and practice of where there were many incidents where APD officers were using unreasonable and excessive force to include deadly force. So use of force is the main reason why we're here. Now, the CASA did also identify several systemic deficiencies that attributed to that use of force problem. And they range from hiring, supervision. There's a list of what factors that they also identified and they put in the CASA, right? So what we've found is our use of force policy is we have to do an investigation anytime an officer uses force, right? But what we found out is that these investigations were taking so much time and manpower because we wanted to do a very thorough investigation. So I think in a sense we should be applauded for that, but at the same time, our mandate as police officers is to protect and serve, and our primary responsibility is when we call 911 or call 242 cops, that's our job, is to respond. So, and being short on manpower, it's like, how can we make these use of force investigations more efficient without sacrificing quality and that thoroughness, and ensuring that we are able to identify when a force is in policy and when a force is out of policy, right? The Compliance Bureau and several SMEs within the department, they worked with the monitoring team, they worked with the Department of Justice. They came up with this revised level 1 use of force investigation process, where it's made it more efficient. It takes a lot less time without sacrificing that thoroughness and making sure that we're identifying and good force and not, or force that's out of policy, but we're able to get our officers back in service. That's the main thing, so we can continue to provide the service that's required of us. So we're right smack in the middle of this pilot project. It was set to go for, I believe, 90 days. We're in the middle of it right now. I can tell you, I attended the training for that, and it was really, really, really good training. It really gave the officers a good understanding of the different applications of force and how to classify that force and how to investigate that, who's investigating it. So now we have a specialized unit that's investigating all of the level 1 uses of force for the entire department. I think that's also going to help improve consistency, what's expected and what needs to occur in these type of investigations, and they can provide good quality recommendations on trends that they may be seeing, and that could be whatever's leading up to the force, whether it's de-escalation or response, anything like that. They can provide us some meaningful feedback. So I know I've been talking for a little while, so with that, really, I'll stand for questions.
Can you talk about what the different levels of use of force is?
Yes, so there's 3 levels of force. And let me back up. Let me just start off by saying the way that I look at it is anytime I have physical contact / force, or any physical contact, really, if you think about it, that's force. But we have to look at what's reportable in the sense of we are able to provide the community a very accurate picture of how much force we're using, right? So we break that down into levels. So we have 3 levels. The level 3 is basically force that could possibly inflict a severe injury or death. So like a firearm discharge, that would be a level 3 use of force. A canine bite, that would be a level 3 use of force. Any strikes to the neck, head, or genitalia with a hard object where you can potentially cause that serious injury or death, that would be a level 3 use of force. Some of our tools, if we use our ECWs, our electronic control weapons, our tasers, if we use those for a specific amount of time, or if we do a specific amount of applications with it, 3 in the same incident of trying to take someone in custody, that would be a level 3 use of force. Right under that, we have what's called a level 2 use of force. So this is any type of force that causes injury, right, or the potential to cause injury. And then if we use less lethal tool, so like if we deploy a 40mm launcher that shoots sponge rounds or beanbags, a beanbag shotgun that shoots out beanbags, these are less lethal munitions, to gain compliance. But anytime we deploy these type of tools, it would be a level 2 use of force. Or if we use a technique to where I may have to wrench your arm and do like an arm bar or take you down to the ground, that would be a level 2 use of force, right? And then our level 1s. And let me just start off by saying, these past few years, we formed the Internal Affairs Force Division, and they're the body of the department that investigates all level 2 and level 3 uses of force. Now, up until this pilot program, and there's only us and the Valley Area Command, we're the only ones doing this pilot program. The rest of the department, the other 4 area commands, for all the level 1 uses of force, it's the area command chain of command, the lieutenants and commanders in the area commands that are investigating these level 1 forces. And basically, level 1 force is any force where we cause transitory pain. So when we cause pain to an individual that we're arresting, that's going to be a level 1 force, right? Or if we have to use a show of force. So if I have to point my ECW, or if I have to point my firearm while I'm giving commands to gain compliance, and that is effective. A lot of times that's effective. You know, then they say, okay, I give up. I don't want to fight anymore. We also report that as a level 1 force. So it's not physical contact, but the fact that we're deploying that tool and we're pointing it at them, we're classifying that, we're reporting that as level 1 force that we're using. Then we also have something called low-level control tactic, which is not a reportable use of force, but it's still physical contact with another individual. But it's where I may have hands on, I'm escorting someone, right? Even if they're trying to resist by pulling away, it's me just guiding or interacting them to get into a police car or to go into a holding cell, right? It's still physical contact. And so it's important that it's still documented, and the officers document this type of force, low-level control tactics, they document that in the police reports. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
And so for the pilot program, now they formed a new unit that has a sergeant detectives to investigate these level 1 forces. And I think it's going to be a good thing. I'm hoping that the department at the end of the pilot, the entire department all the other area commands will be able to do what we're doing.
So it's all about intent, right? Because you guys I'm sorry.
It's not all about intent, but intent plays a factor.
No.
I'll give you an example.
No.
If I shoot someone with a beanbag shotgun, but I miss, so nothing struck that individual, but we're still going to classify that as a level 2 use of force.
What I was trying to say was, you guys, the area commands, since the level 1s were yours to investigate, that, I mean, you're using level 1 use of force every shift, right? I mean, a lot of it, they piled up, right?
No, not necessarily. If sometimes I can tell you as being the commander that has to review these, especially for the Southeast Area Command, we're the busiest area command in the city. It feels like that, but I think if you actually look at the data, the most I had in a month was about 8. Now, these level 1, and when they revised, when they amended the court approved settlement agreement a few years back, they switched from use of force and serious use of force, they switched to these levels. And the idea was level 1s, not that they're, you know, how do I say it? If you actually read the amended CASA, level 1 was supposed to be a review of force, because again, this force is not as intrusive as a level 2 or level 3. So the way the amended CASA was written is like, hey, level 1, this is a review. A supervisor, the chain of command needs to look and say, yes, this is a level 1, it could cause transitory pain, but there's no issues, they got the person this. But that's actually not what happened. And I'm telling you my perspective, right? There may be some that won't agree with this, but my perspective was that level 1s were treated basically just like level 2s and level 3s, where all of every single piece of possible evidence from involved officers to witnesses, both officer witnesses, civilian witnesses, photographs, it was basically the same amount of evidence that was used in a level 2 and level 3 investigation that was being used for level 1. I would go through basically anything that was attached to that investigation. It was the expectation. I was obligated to review it, So that's where it was taking up a lot of time, right? So what we wanted to do, and which I'm glad this pilot we're seeing the success on it, is we're able to not do all that. We're able to look at the involved officer and say, yes, that's a level 1 force. He did have a lawful objective. They did do it appropriately within laws. And we are way more efficient. We're able to get everyone else back in service. We're able to get that involved officer back in service. The lieutenants and sergeants and commanders don't need to be involved now because we have this unit that's taking care of it back in service. And I'd like to say we have not sacrificed our thoroughness. And we're still able to say, yes, this is in policy, or no, it's out of policy.
Amanda, we have 3 and a 4th participant interested in asking some questions. Archie has yet to raise his hand, so I'll go ahead and start with Angelo. Angelo, go ahead and ask your question. And we'll get to you, Archie. You really will.
I have a question for you, Commander. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You know how you're been looking at robberies, like all those. I also have a question about like physical assault. Like, do you call those for like physical assault?
Do we call them?
Yeah, like for people to call for a physical assault because I know someone who was reaching out to the police and because someone got physical assault. I was wondering, do you do a check on those as well?
Yeah, let me see. Stop me if I'm not answering your question, but I
Okay.
absolutely call if there's a physical assault. Even if it's a simple assault, absolutely call, because this also goes to a funding and resource. It affects that as well. Every time that you call and you generate that CAD or you make that report, it gives us a more accurate picture of what crime is occurring and where it's occurring, right? So then we can look at what are the systems behind why this crime is happening. And it may be domestic violence, so where it's like, you know what, as a community, we need to really work on domestic violence or something like that, right? The problem is when you don't call, we don't have that accurate picture of how much crime and what and where it's occurring. I'll give you one quick example. I know we're pressed for time, but I had an individual where their vehicle got burglarized. And they're like, you know what, you guys are too busy, I didn't call. But again, a lot of, 90% of when I'm figuring out where to allocate my resources, I'm looking at where the crime occurred. And if you don't call and report it, then I don't know, you have an aggravated assault problem or a burglary problem over here. And then it's not on my radar and I can't set aside some resources to address it. So it's very important that you call and report all crimes.
Okay, because the reason. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead.
Because the reason I'm asking, because I know this is a personal question, is because I know this is gonna be personal information. It's because the other day is that my 2 uncles were fighting and they were like fist fighting, and so it's right down by the Kirtland Park, like during like the southeast area. And so like they called the cops. They have not really been like, no cops have been answered. And so my cousin came and he was threatening his cousins as well. And he said, the next time if anything happened to my father, I'm going to get my gun and shoot you guys. So that's why I'm just asking this personal question.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's something that should be reported, because again, there's other resources that we have that could help. Like I talked about before, our restorative justice campaign, we have, conflict mediators that specialize in incidents or situations like that. Will it work every time? Maybe, maybe not. But why not? You know what I mean? It's a resource
Right.
that's out there. And if we have that feeling like, you know what, I wouldn't be surprised if my uncle gets into it with my older uncle and sure enough, a week later it happens. You know, if there's a resource that can meet with them and prevent that, let's take advantage of that. So I think it starts with, you know, making that report to where we can say, hey, it may not necessarily be domestic violence where charges have to be initiated, but we can work with the parties involved and we can see if there's some other solution that can help them out. Just a thought. But yeah,
Okay.
at the end of the day, to answer your question, please call and report crime.
Okay, I gave your number to my cousin, so just in case if something happens, so she has it as your phone number.
Well, let me leave you with this.
Okay.
If someone's life is immediately in safety, please call 911 first. Now,
Yeah,
if you hear,
they did, and then they didn't they got no
definitely
response. So.
follow up with me, send me an email, send me a phone call. I don't sleep, I have insomnia, so please communicate with me. But please remember, if it's an immediate, where someone could, their safety's in jeopardy, 911 needs to be the first phone call.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to make a quick, let's press on with others who've had their hands up earlier. In the military, there's the phrase, ears to the ground, boots to the ground. You folks are the boots to the ground. We need to be the ears to the ground, telling you what's happening so that you can take action. So Sandra, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. We'll get to Archie and we'll get to Mike over here, and then Ron.
Hello. Hi, Commander.
Hi, Sandra.
So as usual, I'll start by thanking you and all the officers for everything you do for us. I know you guys are really shorthanded and are working long hours. So a complete thanks for all that you do. Second, extreme thank you for clearing up Wilson Park. We were getting awfully tired of having to call 311 at least like 10 times a day. It was getting so horribly bad, you know, that they were coming into the parking lots and assaulting just people that were there. And so thank you for having your officers do that. It's made a huge difference, I think, especially for the people who go to the Holy Ghost. That was getting to be a really scary issue for them. And I was wondering if you had the crime statistics for, I guess it would be for August for CSP and residential burglaries. Because there seemed to be a lot of posts on Nextdoor of neighbors in this area posting about people coming up trying to break into their homes like at 3 o'clock in the morning or damaging their property. And so I'm just wondering if there is a rise in those statistics from, I guess it would be from July. Thank you.
You know what? I don't have July or August carved out specifically. I can get that to you, Sandra. I can tell you that we are down 45% compared to the previous year on CSPs. Now, like I said, I've said this in the past over and over, I don't think our year-to-date comparison should be the only metrics to say that we're successful or not successful. We had right now, as of September, for the Southeast Area Command, we've had 36 incidents. Whereas this time last year, we had 65. So yeah, I'm glad with that, but at the same time, we've had 36 incidents, you know what I mean? And I don't want anyone to be a victim of CSP. So I know 2 weeks ago, it wasn't a spike, but I had 2. So that instantly perked my attention. I'm like, in fact, I have the email, I'll forward it to you. I told my crime prevention specialist the next day, I want these reports. Because the last thing I want is a serial sex offender going on a spree, right? So I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a trend. And there wasn't a trend, thankfully. But I can get with you offline. I can get you cases for July, and I can get you cases for August. But if we are using a year-to-date comparison, we are down significantly compared to last year on CSPs.
Okay, and that was just a big concern from some of my neighbors, especially some of the elderly women, who go and walk their dogs. And it's, they're starting to get afraid that they're going to be assaulted. It doesn't matter the time of day they go, early morning, afternoon. And now that the weather, is getting a little cooler in the evenings, you're seeing a lot more people out there. And so just as, I'll just use the gender of single women walking out there, that was concerning to me when Jose had provided the spike in the CSP cases. So I just wanted to follow up with that just to make sure that there wasn't a further spike, just for those
Now,
particular.
if I could take 1 minute and say, like, and I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but there is a very large portion of CSP cases where the offender is known, right? It's known to the victim. But there is that portion, even if it's a minority, where the offender isn't known, right? It was a crime of opportunity. So I can tell you in situations like that, our response, of course, the investigative side of APD is going to do everything that they can, get every single piece of evidence, forensic evidence, do all the tests, identify and apprehend that individual. But on the patrol side, what we can do in the area command, we could definitely increase our patrols and our high visibility presence, and then also work with each neighborhood, each block. See if we can get a robust type of block watch where we have neighbors looking out for neighbors, having direct communication, with the sergeants if it doesn't necessarily need to be a 242 cops call or a 911 call. It could be an email saying, hey, this green car, it made the block 2 times. I've never seen it before. Just having that communication with us at the area command. So there's definitely a response and a plan in the event that we have to mobilize to combat these CSP incidents. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But like I said, we have had a pretty significant reduction in CSPs for this area.
Okay, thank you. And I'll get with you offline. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sandra.
A quick question, Sandra. Did you get my email a day or 2 ago?
I did not, but I chatted now with Callie and he sent it to me.
Okay. I will try to get in touch with you. I've got some links of various crime mapping things that the city and APD actually support, and it's pretty informative, a whole lot
Okay.
more informative than next door.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. All right,
Okay,
thank you.
so Archie,
Yeah, how's it going, Commander? You touched on hotspots. Exactly where are those hotspots in your report?
So what we've noticed, especially with, well, it depends on crime categories, but we do have some hotspots that overlap each other. But I can tell you what seems to be consistent is Gibson, Central, and Lomas. A lot of crimes just radiate off these thoroughfares. And that's where I'm like, I look at these hotspots, and yeah, they shift around. They do, week by week, they shift around. But for the most part, they're pretty much in the same vicinity, right? And so that's why I'm really pushing towards, we're doing as much as we can. I mean, we can always adjust and switch strategies, but our officers are working hard. Your police officers are working hard. But if that's not enough, what else can we do thinking outside the box? Like we got to do other stuff, even if it's through engagement and outreach, our crime prevention, putting up signs, doing a march if we have to, doing a cleanup, whatever else that we can do besides just increasing our patrol and arresting people. Because, like I said, go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry. With that said, when you said what we can do, I really liked it when you first took over, when I forget what incident we had, and you had basically like a community meeting right there at the substation when there was a serious incident, and you talked to the community. That was just like #1. But have you done that anymore, or there's just been so much, probably, right?
I've only done 3 of those, but that's something I could definitely bring back. Thankfully, June and July was tough for us. We were having shootings pretty much every day in the ID. But thankfully, these last couple weeks, well, we had a homicide last night over off of Espanola, but our shootings have went down. So I'm thankful for that. But you know what? I in fact sent a referral to the Violent Crimes Division just to see the status of all of our shooting homicides and stuff like that. We could definitely have one for this upcoming quarter. We could pick a couple shootings and just kind of see where we're at with them and do another shooting review.
Wonderful, I
like it.
appreciate that.
Yeah, I like it. I think that was great, you know. Someone
Yes,
just
it
mentioned,
was.
I think it was Mike mentioned Joanne Landry, Pastor Landry. She runs the Compassion Center. I know she came to one of our shooting reviews. So it's a good venue to connect with people as well.
Absolutely, that's
benefit.
what it's all about. That's the best part about it.
Sure.
Thank you, Commander, for what you're doing and your crew.
So next would be Mike, and then Ron.
Okay, can you give me some information on how many cadets are at the academy right now? And are we meeting our goals in terms of getting those cadets trained properly in terms of recognizing mental health problems when they arrive on the scene?
Are you good if I put that as an action item for me? And I can bring you that information next
Okay.
meeting? I think that's that is a great question. I will put this out as an action item and I'll follow up with the council next meeting. So get information on cadet and recruit officer numbers and what type of mental health training that they're
How
receiving.
good of mental health training are
Gotcha.
they getting in the cadet academy so that when they arrive on the scene as newly promoted policemen, they're able to recognize this person has a mental health issue and not going in there with a gun or whatever you want to call it, going to the different levels there. Sometimes I think with the cadets coming out, we have to have them thoroughly trained. I don't know what the program is there on the mental health. That concerns me. So,
Right, we have crisis intervention training, enhanced crisis intervention training, de-escalation training, but let me find out what the exact curriculum and hours is that they get. I think everyone would benefit from hearing that. So let me follow up and
my
put something
last
together.
one is, what's the percentage or ratio of cops to population here in Southeast and in Albuquerque?
Which census are we gonna use?
Huh?
I say, which census are we gonna use?
Oh.
No, I think that's a great, I can tell you the Southeast Area Command, I am, and I don't wanna sound arrogant or conceited when I say this, I have more personnel in my area command than any other division APD. I have about almost, with all my professional civilian staff, I have about 100 people assigned to me.
But that's the reason why is we have such a high crime rate in the Southeast.
Depending on
Would
what
you
type of
agree
crime,
with
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I wouldn't just say crime, but I also say call volume. Because again, geographically, we're not the biggest area command, but you talk about call volume, crime, there's a few factors in that of why we get allocated the most personnel.
Mm.
But I have it as a follow-up action item, population of cops to the city, right?
Right.
So, okay.
I'll make, right before Ron speaks, last night at the Assistant Police Academy Alumni Association meeting, they handed out some flyers for asking for people, and I presume they don't have to be Alumni Association members, asking for people to be role players for CNM law enforcement students. And then you could go in there and act really crazy, but you have to be willing to be held and pushed down and stuff like that too. There are about 8 or 10 opportunities from now through, I think, November.
You know, you bring up a great point, and if I could just say this, take 2 minutes to say this. How many cops are there for every citizen in Albuquerque, right? That's the question. Once upon a time, there was only cops to respond to anything and everything. We were the only ones that responded besides firefighters, right? And there was a lot of, even when I came on the department, which wasn't that long ago, where we were dispatched to situations that we really shouldn't have been dispatched to, but there was no one else to send. Now, right now, in 2022, the administration and the community and the city, I mean, we have multiple responders now. You know, we have ACS that has mental health responders, that has social service responders, that has, you know, people that specialize in behavioral health issues. So I know you wanted to know how many cops per citizens, but again, and I think it's a great thing that we're not responsible, or I shouldn't say responsible, but we can't solve every single issue that's out there, that there's other responders that are better equipped and trained to resolve some of these issues. I can try to get an answer to this, but it also may be worth finding out what the capacity of the entire first responder population is. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I also think we've also received a lot of grants that have occurred that have helped us out in terms of responders and police right there. And I think by getting more money, we can look at more police. What's the recruiting? How are you guys recruiting? I don't see anything in terms of recruiting. Is it all on the web or the bulletin boards or what?
That might be, it may be, I could definitely start the conversation. I can meet with the deputy chief that's over recruiting, the academy and everyone that has a hand in it. It may be worth having recruiting come by, you know, talk to the CPC, let them know where we're at.
No,
I could kind of speak to that. I'm sorry, Archie, again, when I used to be an employment specialist, Mike, Mr. Cross, I forget the recruiter, DeBertini or something, he was always at the job fairs actively recruiting. He was I seen him almost at every job fair that I attended when I was in my former role as an employment specialist.
Thank you.
I
I'll shut
would
my
like
mouth now.
to offer an idea that we spend a lot of time talking about the same things again and again and again, and we eat up a lot of time in these meetings hearing information lecture mode, and that we talk with your public information officers and put together some frequently asked questions, like the whole thing about the description of levels 1 through 3 uses of force. We could say, before you ask a question, go do some research, and there's a 3-minute discussion about this, and the same thing about recruiting and so forth. I am more than happy to break out the audio video equipment or do it on Zoom, and we can put together some really good information to answer these questions. And then, you know, people pick up their cell phones and say, look at this link, and it'll tell you all about this stuff. So what I'm trying to encourage, and I may be barking up the wrong tree, and then Ron, it's your turn, is that we need to have more conversations and fewer lectures, and those conversations need to be about our observations and experiences, and then go into constructive brainstorming on how to solve them. This is the engagement model, that initiative or focus that you have, and I have lots of comments on what you included in here. There are lots of people that you talked about. I says, I would love to get back with them, you know.
I agree, let's do it, Mike. I agree.
Uptown Church, but let's go to Ron.
Thanks. I have 2 questions and 1 comment. First, have you seen a lot of stolen catalytic converters in the area? I hear often from friends about other friends who have had their cars vandalized with stolen catalytic converters. Is that happening in the southeast area?
Not recently, but it is happening citywide. Fortunately, not like in the last month, we haven't been there. But yes, it is happening right now citywide.
Okay. My second question is there an area in the southeast area, which area has the most aggravated battery that has been reported? Do you have calls for?
For just aggravated battery?
Yeah.
I will follow up with you.
Okay.
Maybe us, but let me confirm. I don't know. Let me confirm that.
Now, I have one other comment. Our church has a mental health committee for not only members and their families, but of friends and relatives and people they know about issues of mental health. And we're going to be doing some presentations from the crisis intervention teams at our church to talk to our members about how they go about doing crisis intervention and what takes place and what things are of concern. So we're working with crisis intervention right now for a relationship between our church and CIT.
I think that's outstanding. Where's your church?
First Presbyterian. The church is one of the largest churches in town. It's between Martin Luther King and Central, and it's just on the west side freeway
Oh, yeah. Okay.
path between Central and Martin Luther King. It's just off to the
Right,
west.
west of 25. Yeah, I think that's great.
So Ron, let's try to talk about putting that up as, if it's open to the community.
Sure. It's
Put
open
it
to
up.
the community.
Yeah, put it up on our various places as a community event, just like Coffee with a Cop.
Sure.
But, we can advertise, publicize that. So I'm just writing a note here. So community event, put it up on
Well, I'll have to let you know when it's gonna happen. We were trying to do it earlier, but we got pushed back to at least past the middle of October with all the other things that were going on at the church. For example, in a couple of weeks, we're doing what we call a 90th birthday celebration. And it's for all of our members that are 90 years old or older. And we have a big celebration and a dinner and people all gathered together for our church members that are over 90 years old. And we have about 40 members that are older than 90 years old.
Sounds like a good time.
So, with the departure of several people here, I think Angelo says he's about ready to leave in 15 minutes, right?
About
I'm going to-
7:30-ish, because they're gonna kick me out of the building.
Okay, so Archie, you had raised the question of why are we meeting for an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours, when all of the others seem to be gravitating towards an hour and 15 minutes, shorter meetings. So the question I'm going to ask those who are still here is, would it be better if we made this meeting, public meeting, shorter and have different focus? If we can get away from the presentation lecture mode and do more collaboration, or do we need to have this as a lecture mode presentation? That's what it's been for a long time. And then have separate meetings that I would host through the weeks and just say, on Tuesday at 4 o'clock, we're going to go ahead and talk about community outreach at the Uptown Church and how to help them with their homeless population. And then record that and put it online. I am all in favor of having those discussions recorded and accessible to the community so somebody can watch it and say, I've got an idea to solve that problem. And then we have another meeting, record it, they explain it. We try to build momentum by having more frequent discussions instead of once a month for an hour to 2 hours. So I'm opening that question up. It doesn't have to be resolved tonight, but I'm looking for feedback, and I'm also looking for Trevor or Lolita or Will or whomever, let's see, somebody jumped off as well. Let's have a discussion. What are your thoughts? If you don't have
I
thoughts,
like
I've got about
the,
6
I like
pages
the
of
2
them.
hour.
Who is that? Will?
Yeah, yeah. I like the 2 hour version. I think I think an hour, it's not going to be enough time, but depending on how the format goes, if we're able to get it, you know, more the way you want it to be, where we're kind of giving the recommendations and doing that, then I think an hour would be suitable for that. If we're, you know, more geared to that, like an hour and a half, but I don't, an hour and 15 minutes is kind of a short time, you know.
I'm smiling at Edgar over here because I'm always mindful that if we start at 6 o'clock, we need to be out before 8 o'clock to
We close the
accommodate
building.
their staff. It's their building. I guess another issue is that I'm wondering if some of the, quote, official business that we CPC council members grapple with, they don't need to be discussed here. A review of the minutes, I'm still having problems with people reading the minutes and saying, yay, nay, adjust this way. I don't think we need to have a lot of those discussions in the public meeting. And I would advocate that when we have those discussions, unless there's something that has very personal, private information, that we record those, and I do record them, and that we make them accessible to the public so they can see the kinds of deliberations that we go through. I think they'll be bored to death talking about revising minutes. I think they'd be more interested in our discussions perhaps about potential recommendations that we could broaden. And when I talk about discussions about recommendations, this would not be limited to the Southeast CPC. We might have initial discussions in our mid-month meeting, but the CPCs, the Council of Chairs, has always advocated, or suggested at least, that we do collaborative recommendation process so that we don't recommend something through the Southeast that then becomes an issue or problem for Foothills, that we all work together and come up with a more, try to build a consensus among the CPCs. So I'm going to, for those people who are on the emailing list, I try to limit the number of emails I send out, and those of you who are not on the email list who send me your email, I will schedule some open discussions, what we would call working groups, to talk about specific issues. You know, it can be how to support your effort, Commander, at Uptown Church, right down the street from it. I'd love to be there. You know, we could have a discussion about that. We could have a discussion about specific recommendations and have them recorded, available, and, you know. So I'm offering ideas.
Can I give you an example?
Sure.
I think that's great because for my write-up that I sent out, one of the questions that I got was, why are the unsheltered at the parks being issued CT citations? I know it is the law, but this seems to further potential legal problems, as will not show up in court, will be issued FTA, which is warrants and fines, etc. Do you envision a better way? I understand that we do not want the same issues here at Fort Chacon and Wilson Park as we're at Coronado, perhaps something that the community can help with. And I spent the first half of the meeting talking about why I'm doing what I'm doing at Wilson, Fort Chacon Park and the other parks in this area tonight, but yeah, by all means, if there's a better way, I mean, you know, that could be a discussion point, like maybe we should do something. I mean, just throwing that out there, if someone feels like that, I don't know if there's other people that feel like that as well. Is there something more that we should be changing in the directives that I gave our officers? APD, I will tell you, the city is in the process of revising a policy on encampments. They put it out, I want to say like 6 months ago, but they had to pull it back because it was hard to read and it was hard to understand, and there was a lot of problems with it. So right now, we're not operating off a policy for it. We're operating off of the laws that are in place. Can't erect a structure in a park, right? Criminal trespass, stuff like that. We're just operating off the law right now, but if you guys have ideas of what I need to do with that initiative, or if you don't like the initiative, or we should do something different, or if you have a policy idea for it, just to stimulate like what you're talking about, right? You know? It's a big thing. I don't see it going away. I will have to deal with encampments every day until for a long time, because it's not going to happen overnight that we fix our capacity issue as a city. So. And as Mike, as you pointed out, I don't know if you guys picked up on it in my write-up, Uptown Church, it's over there off of Sam, it's right next to Christie Mays, over there, yeah. They have a huge facility. They want to start this ministry with helping the unhoused. How does APD help them? How does CPC help them? How does the community help them?
I will simply say that I've had a fair number of interactions with them, especially with coach, basketball coach over there. And I used to stop 3 o'clock in the morning and look for the homeless people sleeping in front of the doors. I'd get up and give them some food, and then I'd head to my volunteer shift at the hospital. So I have, and the burrito lady, La Burrito lady, she used to go out and feed homeless people, and now they have a new organization that's doing that. I've talked to them. I think that there'd be a lot of opportunities to do some kind of collaboration, brainstorming with them. I'm all in favor of, you know, I'll just walk down the street and meet you. So I have another, we're not getting much in the way of questions or feedback from our community members. First of all, I hope that you appreciate that we've moved from the webinar to the meeting format, because now we can see that Lolita's been here for this entire time listening. Previously, other community members could never know who was attending. So I hope that there's an appreciation that we're trying to move back to something that is more open for back and forth conversations. I thought last month that there was a good response. I'm hoping that I'll get some more feedback. If I'm wrong, tell me. You know, we'll figure out how to rework things. So one thing that I've noticed, and I'm members of various crime watch groups on Facebook and Nextdoor, and I characterize a lot of what goes on as ranting and venting. A lot of angry name calling and so forth. But I tell people, this is my value as a CPC member, that I don't consider it my right or privilege only to hear the things that I want to hear or would like to hear. I have to listen to everybody in the community, my neighbor, I won't say where, nearby neighbor, long rant session, and I try to say, okay, I'm going to take that and see what we can do with it and get past anger to where we're working together to brainstorm on solutions to things. So I guess I will be a lightning rod and just advertise on Nextdoor and say, if you've got a gripe, I'm gonna sit and listen to it. And I will report it. You better be willing to stand by your words and apologize if necessary, as I try to do. I will report it and I'll put it up on my YouTube channel, playlist, and the community can get back and say, hey, you know, Frank had a really good observation, and I'm sorry he's so angry about it, but here are some things we can do about red light runners. So I guess I will call those venting and rant sessions. I'll try to find some more diplomatic way to present it online, and then we'll make it available for people so that our 2-hour meetings, if we have 2-hour meetings, might be able to be refocused somehow. So I'm all mouth, but I'm also all ears. So please, I put my contact email into chat. Give me some feedback. You can give it to me right now, or you can think about it. I try to sleep on things before I write emails, so maybe you want to sleep on it and send me something later. So do we have other questions or comments or suggestions from those of you who are still online?
I got one. This is Will. I know you guys are going to go and do a big warrant roundup for the felony warrants. And it's kind of right before the Balloon Fiesta or during the Balloon Fiesta. Did you guys have you guys thought of doing anything for the people with like misdemeanor warrants where they can actually like come in and like get the warrant taken care of without going to jail or anything like that at the same time to kind of just get that taken care of and let the community members be a little proactive, I guess, before?
No, that's a great idea, but I mean, we're just focusing on specifically auto burglary, auto theft, and robbery, because we're thinking about the people where it's like my car got broken into and they stole all my stuff, or the balloonist that gets their gondola stolen, right? So that's why we're focusing on those specific warrants. Because this is really designed to try to minimize folks from being victims during the fiesta. But like for misdemeanor warrants, like if it's for drug paraphernalia or traffic violations or criminal trespass, I haven't thought, maybe we keep that separate from the Balloon Fiesta mission, but are you talking about like putting it out there to the community and having an opportunity where it's like, hey, and we'd have to organize this with the courts, but it's like, you're gonna get a pass, you're not gonna get arrested, come in, schedule a new court date, and this warrant gets squashed? Is that something you're thinking of?
Yeah, something like
I like
that.
it.
That
I like
way,
it. I like
if
it.
they, and it, it'll give them an opportunity to come and take care of it, and maybe.
This might be a bold statement. I don't have any data to support this. I don't think it's my misdemeanor warrant people that are gonna be affecting our poor balloon. You know what I'm saying? That's why this warrant roundup is focused on keeping people safe and not being a victim of a property crime during the fiesta. But a misdemeanor warrant.
That is a great idea, though, Will. Great idea.
Great idea. I haven't thought of that before. You know, why not? Like pick a day. We'd have to have some meetings with the courts. You know what I mean? Get them on board, and then we say, hey, come on down. We'll help you. Like APD, everyone will help you. Let's get new court dates. Let's squash these warrants. You don't have to be living in like do I have to look over my back? Am I going to get arrested? No, I think that's a great idea. And I think with it being misdemeanor, it's reasonable. You know what I mean?
Cool.
Thanks, Will. I like that a lot.
I would definitely support that. You know, so.
Here in the write-up, there was a lot of mention of policy and stuff like that, and I guess maybe this goes back to an FAQ or something, Mike, but is there a resource where I can look up the SWAT 192 policy?
All of our policies
They're all online.
are public record, so you have,
Yeah, so
and I urge you to take a look at it, and you're not alone. This is another response that I got. Regarding the policy changes, I read the SWAT 1-92 and have many questions. I would like to first sit down with someone from SWAT and then bring these questions back to the council. The VIP custom notification delivery seems reasonable, but would like to see more proactive approaches with VIP. I'm still going through compliance 1-9. Looks to me as if changes were needed because someone did something not good. So, I mean, there's other members thinking the same thing, you know, so again, we operate off of policy.
yeah.
You know, we recognize in a use of force investigation where it's like, oh no, it's a bad policy. We have to change this policy. So it'd be great to have your eyes on that to help us realize when we need a change of policy.
I guess so, just having a resource where that's all gathered together, Mike, and the CASA too, you know, I mean, it's not all, we can all say it's online, but it's not all easily.
I've noticed that things are sometimes difficult to find, and I've been trying to use the tiny URL short links to point people. I try not to send a whole lot of attachments in emails, but rather to send links.
Right, but if, you know, if we'll just have a resource page, right?
Yeah,
With
and
these
I've
links on it?
started, and if you want to work with me, I'll show you where to look, and you tell me what else I should be putting in there.
Sure, it can be something we do.
Sorry to interrupt, but the UNM's this section is gonna close, so I'm gonna head out.
Good night,
I hope
Angela.
everyone have a good night and be safe.
Thank you. Now, Archie, you had your hand up there for a bit.
I did have it because when they started talking about SWAT, I think I asked this question: is there a SWAT report or SWAT report that's given in the crime report? I'm not too sure. I don't think I remember hearing about it, or if not, can we get it put into the crime report?
I didn't hear him. Was there a SWAT, like how many numbers of activation?
Yeah, basically, Commander. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, in fact, my former, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Lieutenant Gerard Bartlett. He was a great day shift lieutenant here in the Southeast. He's the new SWAT lieutenant. So I could definitely talk to him about it, you know, and we could definitely see if we could get information on how many SWAT call-outs that they have.
Sure, I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's kind of a housekeeping thing, but part of our thing for the community is I know that you guys with your tradition in police service and military service all love your acronyms, but most of us have no idea what the acronyms are. And so if we can try to just mention what it is we're talking about briefly, and then we can move on, but get lost. I mean, you guys talk it all day long, and I totally understand, but maybe something to try to keep in mind.
So a quick,
Like, so when the I think it's like a crime against a person or a sexual crime against a person.
CSP.
Yeah, CSP.
It's criminal sexual penetration.
yeah,
It's
so
not
we
nice to
should,
talk about, I suppose, but.
and I guess one of these days, when there's a little bit of free time, I'll try to write up all of the guidelines for our meetings, and that would be one of them. But another one would be saying, hi, I'm Tyler Richter, in case you forgot. You know, so people introduce themselves as they speak. It is 7:30. Unless any of the virtual attendees has a question or a comment, I'm not going to, I would much rather go through, I have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages of ideas and notes and things to follow up on. I would much rather sit down, give it some thought, and do a one-person monologue, put it up online, and say, if you want to hear, a suggestion about the, let's see, I call it the frequent flyer, a known firm, somebody like the gentleman in my neighborhood. I would be able to describe him, put pictures, height, weight, etc., so that every time I call 911, I don't have to say, answer all those questions. I say, he's person number 12752. And the dispatcher clicks on that and says, oh yeah, yeah. So we can describe him to the police officer instead of going through all of that. So what I would do is try to go through my notes and then simply say, okay, I have a 3-minute or 5-minute presentation about this idea that we could possibly develop as a recommendation, rather than spend my time here and bore all of you to death. So I will work to make technology work for all of us, to make things simpler. So, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Sandra. Anyway, go ahead.
I just want to say thank you. I don't want to, I do not want to say this the wrong way. So please, I'm not trying to, I want this to come off as negative, but this is like the first meeting where I have some good things to think about. So thank you, everyone.
And I would like people to think more about it next month when you send us your summary around the first of the month. And I'll probably try to pester people and say, okay, on Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock, I'm going to talk about it. And if you have some suggestions, please go ahead and log on. If you have questions, and try to get people week by week, maybe spending a little bit of time talking about it. Okay?